Welcome back to DIVEBOMB IndyCar Podcast. It's that time of the year again. We are 1 week away from the 108th running of the Indianapolis 500, the best day of the motorsport year. And of course, to prelude that, we've had the qualifying to decide who's going to lead the field to green, and the one individual who, unfortunately, their Indianapolis 500 dream has ended before it's even begun. Plenty to go through. We've had about 10 hours of qualifying over the weekend, so there's plenty to unpack, plenty to debrief, and plenty to look forward to as it's ever so close. Archie and Ellie, we're almost there. The Indy 500 is almost back. It's our Christmas and birthday all into one, and it's just 1 week away.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, how fun is qualifying weekend, by the way? It's just so much track time, and even through Saturday, it's just so much action, and it's such a thrill kind of watching the cars running so close to the wall. You've got a definite group of drivers who are just super, super entertaining to watch. Your Satos, your Castro Neveses, your Ferrucci's, just running up so close to the wall, but that's their line. They're completely in control of their cars, and yeah, you have to be so precise, otherwise you are in the wall or you are out of the field. And I guess it's just the pinnacle of teamwork as well, as we will get onto with Team Penske.
Yeah, let's get on to them. And the most precise was Team Penske, locking out the front row for the first time since 1988 when it was done by Team Penske. So, bit of history reenactment there. There's a bit of a, what's the stat? It's the one the inside won the pole for the first time. The one in the middle was a one-time Indianapolis 500 winner, and the one the outside won the Indianapolis 500 on the last year. So that's a little bit of IndyCar trivia.
And the pole sitters in the yellow submarine as well, because it was Rick Mears on pole that year. So
that's a bit of a history for you. And this year it's Scott McLaughlin who took the pole for the Indy 500 ahead of Will Power in the middle and Joseph Newgarden on the outside. Penske front row lockout, and ever since Fast Friday, it looked like that was going to be the outcome. Will Power predicted it about in end of April or mid-April or something. Will Power was ahead of the game. He's the new Houdini is Will Power at this rate, but pretty good guess from Power. But yeah, Penske were right on the pace. I think Herta called it a cheap way to hire Michael Cannon, but their technical alliance support it certainly helped out amongst other things. I think that was noted by the Penske drivers post-qualifying, but They were really in a league of their own, hitting 234-mile-an-hour averages. McLaughlin was the fastest pole run of all time by 0.003 mile an hour on average. So that's pretty tight margins there, as always is at Indy. And yeah, he will be leading the field to green next Sunday.
Yeah, and he surpassed Alex Palou's pole from last year, of course. So two very, very fast pole runs. But I think one thing that really stood out with Penske is just how consistent they have been across runs. Even some runs improving on their second, third, fourth laps even. And yeah, I mean, I think Palou put in a 2:35 lap on his pole run last year. McLaughlin's fastest was mid 2:34s, but he kept it in the 2:34s until dropping slightly below that on his final lap. So I think it was just consistency really paid for Penske. And one thing that their drivers have really been noting is just how similar all the cars are in terms of performance, because you often see in teams, because you have to, there's so many intricacies when you're setting up your speedway cars. You'll often see one car that's noticeably faster, one car that may be slower in a team, but with Penske, it was kind of just flip-flopping from day to day. Newgarden was quickest on Fast Friday, then it was Power on Saturday, and then ultimately it was McLaughlin on Sunday. And I just feel like everything went their way. They got great qualifying draws on Saturday. They could just put the cars away after one run and stayed 1, 2, 3 all day. And, just the speed, the stability of their cars, they never looked remotely out of control, whereas you saw some teams sliding. Even if McLaughlin said on his final lap, I was a little bit loose, you couldn't really tell. So, yeah, they've been searching for a few years now. I think Newgarden's been saying 3-4 years. They've really been searching hard, and it's kind of not one little thing, but just kind of loads of just amassed really over these last few years. And yeah, their last front row was Simon Pagenaud's pole in 2019, I believe. And Power was the only car in the Fast 12 last year, I believe. I think he started 12th, but just loads of hard work in the off season. Chevy, they've come on leaps and bounds, as we'll get onto. And think Power mentioned something with a change in the push rod suspension rules that have benefited Penske as well. But it was seamless their weekend. It was phenomenal. It was a beatdown on the field, really.
Yeah, the whole weekend, like you said, they were just consistently good. They was always at the top, you know. They did it once, then you're like, oh, they won't do it again, and then they did it again, and then it was like, oh well, they've got to do it now in the Fast Six, and they kind of did it. And even when they got 1, 2, 3, it didn't seem not possible, but it didn't seem like it was going to happen. And the entire time they were just consistent. I've just said that word again, but they were just powerful and always at the top.
Yeah, Penske were in full force, and I don't want to say it looked undeniable, their pole position, but I think it was taking something very impressive to beat them, but they weren't to be beaten, and Penske really flexing them muscles. Let's not forget, the main entries in their team, the main personnel aren't even here still. They're still suspended for the month. So Roger Penske actually made a comment towards their efforts and said he appreciates their effort because it is their cars, it is their team as well. But Newgarden spoke about this in Indianapolis, sort of the depth they have in the team. Power did as well, to be fair, about the depth in their team to pull this performance out of the bag. And it's clearly obvious that they don't look any different. They look better, if anything, which doesn't worry Tim Cindric at all. But there you are.
Yeah, I think they are the epitome of what a collaborative effort it really is at Indy, because I think Will Power made a comment that, if you just take a stock Dallara out, it will be 10, 15 miles per hour slower. There is so much work that goes into setting that up and making it, reach these 2:34.5 average lap speeds. And that is a team effort. And yeah, as you say, Dan, I was just going to say that as well. It kind of just emphasizes and it really shines a light on those comments made by Newgarden and Power and show, this isn't just something they are saying. There really is some superb depth at Team Penske. And God, they've really cracked something, because they, Joseph Newgarden last year had to win from 17th. To have locked out the front row 1 year on, it's taken some improvement, and it's some achievement.
Should we get on to the best of the rest? Alexander Rossi was the only man who looked like he could even get close to the Penske's. I think it's the only other man to run in the 2:34s the entire of qualifying. And similar to the Penske's, the whole weekend it looked like he was going to end up fourth. He didn't quite have the pace of the Penske's, but he was the strongest McLaren by quite a distance. And we know Rossi's always got strong at the 500. I think he's finished fifth in the last 2 years, maybe 3 years. Last 2 years. And obviously he's a winner here. He almost won in 2019 as well. So Rossi's very strong here, and I think he'll be pretty happy with his starting position. It's the second best ever starting position at the 500, and we know McLaren have maybe been a bit stronger in the races than they have in qualifying in the last few years, which he can take confidence from. And I've been speaking about Rossi a bit on the podcast the last sort of few weeks about maybe people really doubting his McLaren future. People are sort of saying, with the likes of Porsche and Arlott coming in, is he under danger? I think Rossi's really sort of stepped up to that mark, and we know how strong Pato O'Ward's been around here, but he doesn't seem to quite have the pace compared to his teammates, and Rossi really has really stepped up.
It was kind of vintage Alex Rossi, really, wasn't it? I mean, the car, if it wasn't for the Penske's, you would really be crediting just how balanced that number 7 machine looks, wouldn't you, really? But Rossi's just such a controlled driver. He's so calm. He got drawn the last qualifying spot, but it was a very shrewd move from the team actually on Saturday to just pull his car out of line. I think they do the same to O'Ward as well, I think, and just keep the car cool, make any changes from kind of what you've observed, keep Rossi cool, which doesn't take much really. He's a very relaxed guy, but an uber relaxed Alexander Rossi, even not in the best conditions, still put it P4 and stayed there for all of Saturday. And yeah, very much the best of the rest, and looked like the only guy who could possibly get anywhere near the Penske's, which still didn't manage. But yeah, he's looking really, really strong, really good stead. And now it's kind of, as for every team, just about how their race cars can shape up.
Should get onto the flip side of the equation, where one individual's Indy 500 dream has ended before it's begun, and that individual is unfortunately Nolan Siegel. Crashed on Friday. It was Friday, wasn't it? I think it was.
Fast Friday. First day with the boost. Yeah,
a bit of a monster accident. Sort of flipped up in the air, went upside down. Quite similar to Pato O'Ward's crash in 2019. And from there on, there's always a bit of a catch-up. They used the 51 cars chassis that Luca Giotto used on the Indy road course, and it was just sort of trying to get that up to speed. But, with an hour practice in the morning or whatever it was, you don't really have the time to alter it or make anything meaningful. To be fair to Siegel and the team, they were getting closer towards the end. I think his first run was about 4 miles an hour off the pace, and he did get better. But Siegel's young; he's got a lot to learn from. He's obviously crashed on his last chance qualifying attempt, trying to get in the field. But ever since that crash, was always going to be a bit of an uphill struggle, unfortunately for him. And it's not been a great year for Coyne. This doesn't make it any better. So, unfortunately, Siegel won't be in the field.
Yeah, like you said, especially in the bump day, he did his best pace that he had that all weekend, and the difficulties of dealing with the car, it's obviously the car's similar, but they're tailored differently for the road course cars, and I think he did really well, and especially towards the Sunday, he didn't kind of lift off of the pedal at all, which I think he was maybe doing throughout the rest of the weekend, and he just went into that last lap and with everything that he had, and you can't say that he didn't try, and I think he was proud of himself, and I think the team was proud of him as well. It wasn't kind of the result that he wanted, but I think it was just an achievement to kind of be there. And like I said, the last lap he didn't not give up, but he gave it all he could, and he can't go away saying that he didn't do that. And I think that's just an achievement in itself.
Yeah, I think he was kind of on the struggle bus from the very start, really. Coyne have had a difficult start to the year. They've had this uncertain start to the year, not obviously announcing their drivers for St. Pete until days beforehand. The cars haven't, I think Siegel's car didn't have any primary sponsor on the side of it. And when you have a crash that big happen to one of the lower resource teams, I mean, we'll get onto Marcus Ericsson, but we saw even Andretti after Ericsson crashed and had to replace the tub like Siegel did. He really struggled. So when it happens to one of these lower resource teams who maybe don't even have the parts to the extent that Andretti do, as to sort of build that road course car back up into the speedway car, you're just starting from square one again. And they'd made a bit of progress through the practice days, but Siegel, he crashed. It was fairly early on Fast Friday, so he heads into qualifying Saturday, having had a massive incident, not really having had much experience of the boost, not having much experience of running flat with the boost because the car balance wasn't quite there. And then, I think his fastest lap on Saturday was in the 2:28s, and everyone else at least managed a 2:30. So, his fastest 4-lap run was miles off it there. To credit to them, even from the morning practice session ahead of last chance qualifying, they found almost a whole mile an hour, which is really not easy to do. I think, unfortunately, the speed just wasn't quite there in the car. And, on that last run, he wasn't tracking to make it anyway. But you know what? Full credit to him. He might have left Indy with 0, but I think he's still a budding hero of IndyCar in some ways. I think it was, you don't want to say it was heroic crashing out in the way that he did, but he left absolutely no stone unturned. The team didn't leave a stone unturned. Siegel just gave everything he could. It's not easy after, the massive crash that he had to, in that situation, just stay pinned regardless of the car that you've got underneath you, and ends up in the wall. But you know what, I think he might not feel it right now, and he's kind of fighting back the tears in the press conference afterwards a little bit. But he will. I think he should be proud of his efforts when looking back on it. And I'm very glad that there's not really been much negativity towards him too, because he's a talented kid. O'Ward obviously was bumped in 2019, and look where he is now, fighting for race wins. He's a race winner. He's been fighting for Indy 500 wins, and he's got potential to be a championship winner. And I think Siegel is definitely in that category.
It's always a sort of thing in Indy, when you crash, one, you lose confidence, but if you lose your tub, it's even worse. When you crash, it's always a recovery mission from there on. And when he crashed that tub, one, you've got to fix the car and get it up to speed very quickly, and two, you've got to gain confidence back in your driver, and that's almost the harder thing, because you can get the car in the same condition, but if the driver isn't confident, it's not going to be much use. And we saw the same with Marcus Ericsson. He obviously crashed a tub on Thursday, forced Andretti into getting a new chassis for him, and he's just on the back foot. Imagine saying start them up, we'd see Ericsson in last chance qualifying, and obviously had another bit of a bizarre incident on his last chance run, where he backed off thinking it was the last lap after only 3 of his 4 laps, and that was a simple mistake. And for a short period of time, looked, hang on, Ericsson might not be in the field here. Imagine saying that, as I said at the start of the month, and wrecking a tub is one of the worst things you can do here because you're just playing catch up. I mean, we saw that from Ericsson, we saw it from Siegel, and Siegel will bounce back from this. I'm sure he'll be back here next year. We'll got to qualify next year, and I hope Dale Coyne Racing sort of see this as a wake up. I think they need to start planning more than a week in advance. For example, they need to start getting these plans into place, starting to run through program. And to be fair, they took a risk on Siegel. This guy had never driven an IndyCar before this year. I did a test, but he'd never driven an IndyCar competitively. And he's only in for 4 races this year, 3 of them for championship points, and only we'll sort of chuck him in for the Indy 500. It was a brave call, but he'll learn from it, and I'm sure he'll be back next year.
Yeah, I mean, may as well get on to Ericsson. I mean, he fronted up and said, it's my fault that I'm in this situation. He kind of ran down low going into turn 4. Car just completely snapped on him. It was kind of evidence of what I was saying earlier about how precise you have to be. Slightly up too high, probably be in the wall. Slightly down too low, get on the curb, you're almost certainly going to be in the wall. And it was unfortunately, he had one hit back into, towards the pit lane, then into the attenuator, came to rest at the end of the pit lane and completely destroyed that car. And yeah, unfortunately, despite this being one of the powerhouse teams, I think there were claims at the start that, oh my God, this backup car might actually be better, but quickly became apparent that was not the case. He was, a good 2 miles per hour off both of his teammates as soon as he kind of got into this new tub Fast Friday, Saturday, and even into last chance qualifying on Sunday. He wasn't even the fastest of those trying to make the field. They just cannot find the speed. And I think we're recording on Monday night after Monday practice. Colton Herta said that if it wasn't for the crash, Ericsson had the potential to be as fast as Herta, who is looking pretty good in race trim. But Ericsson's just, looks like, he could have been a back-to-back winner. This is just kind of evidence, isn't it, that the speedway can kind of just bite for anyone, can't it? It doesn't matter who you are. We've seen rookies crash, but we also see these experienced drivers crashing as well. And I think the last chance qualifying issue where, he thought he'd taken the checker, that's just the evidence of just the immense pressure. And again, he had a pressure run, thankfully executed that late run, but it was still pretty tight, wasn't it? He as I said, Catherine Legg was quicker than him in the other Coyne car, and we've documented their struggles. So Ericsson has a lot to find going into the race, and starting on the back row, and it's just very un-Ericsson, the whole thing, really. So level-headed, consistent. I imagine a large part of the allure for Andretti bringing him in was his successes at the 500. So so a little bit of a disaster after a slightly rocky start to the season with Andretti as well for Ericsson. So could not have seen this coming, could you? But can happen to anyone. Will Power was there in the same position in 21.
Yeah, it happens. It happens. And it just signifies the importance of don't crash your tub. Talking crashing your tub, Rinus VeeKay. Quite the weekend. Got a good draw. He was 4th, wasn't he? So he had a good draw. If you don't understand the way the draw works, you randomly get assigned your starting guaranteed run, and he wanted an earlier draw in order to keep track temps down, which we'll probably get onto later because there's a few people who really did benefit from a nice draw. VeeKay had a good draw, and he binned it on his first lap. VeeKay in that with the statistic before this year, he's qualified the top 4 every year, and just binned it on his first run. And then it was like, oh well, that's not an easy car to repair. They repaired it, went out. Okay, he's just about avoided the final row. He might be safe. He might be locked in first day, and then with a minute left, he bangs out a lap time good enough for the fast 12 in quite unbelievable circumstances. I know every year something unbelievable happens in Indianapolis qualifying, but again, something absolutely unbelievable happened. Fair play to Rinus VeeKay, one for having the confidence to go for a fast 12 lap time, but for the team to get that car replaced in such a quick time and not lose any of its speed quite clearly.
Yeah, I think for me, this might be the biggest story of all because it was a massive hit, and I guess he was very fortunate that it didn't damage the tub. He said pretty much everything but the tub had to be replaced and was damaged, but as you said, Dan, to have put the car together within a couple of hours. He said he went away to eat his lunch. By the time he was back, the car was pretty much back together. And, I think I immediately thought kind of, oh, this is last chance qualifying guaranteed. His record of finishing all in the top 4 and qualifying, that's easily gone. But yeah, somehow gets back on track, does an install, a kind of slightly timid first actual run that just puts him in the field, which I guess in itself after the incident was kind of a story in itself to have just got back out there and put it in the field. He was walking a bit gingerly when he got out of the car. I think again it was I think it was just a shock really. And I mean, as with all the crashes that we've seen this week, I mean, we didn't see a single crash until Monday of last year, and we've had four, 5. Yeah,
Siegel,
5, including Siegel's
twice,
second one. Yeah.
Ericsson, Lundqvist.
Yeah.
So.
So, it's been a lot more incident filled early on. But, yeah, I think just getting in the field in itself was kind of, good enough from VeeKay. I think it was in the 231s, that run. But, no, they pull his time under threat of having to come back for last chance qualifying. But not only puts it in the fast 12, but then goes on to qualify 7th the next day, which is just an astonishing achievement to deliver under all of that pressure, to get back in the car and just immediately be on it like that within you've had one run and then you're into your run that's putting you in the fast 6. It's fast 12, sorry. It's remarkable. I think mentality, it speaks to just how good VeeKay is at IMS, just how good that team are at IMS. It was incredible. I think it might actually be his most satisfying qualifying, despite breaking the record of being inside the top 4 for every single visit in his previous 4.
Remembered more than all the top 4s combined, probably.
For sure.
I think if you told him where to qualify after he'd been there, he'd be slightly confused, amongst other things. I think this man might have a bit of an argument about top story over the weekend. That man, Larson, the 2021 NASCAR Cup Series champion, making his first qualifying in the Indy 500. He had a pretty good race car. He made it quite comfortably. We'll talk about Chevrolet in a minute, probably. He made it through on Saturday. Quite comfortable. I can't remember where it ended up. He ended up 6th on Saturdays, so not bad. And then Sunday, comfortably makes it through the fast 12. No problems at all there. And then finishes 6th. So 5th, sorry. Even better than 6th. Finished 5th. So this guy is a real deal. He is the real deal. We sort of saw this coming. I don't know whether we saw it to this extent. But wow, he is some driver.
Yeah, and as well, he had some mechanical issues as well. This wasn't he went out and he smashed it straight out of the park. He had some issues, something in the car, and then they slowed him down. And then for a second, you'd think, oh, is he going to be able to get back out? And then he gets out and he smashes it. I knew that we kind of coming in. We said that whether he'd do good or bad, how that would reflect on IndyCar, but I think it doesn't really matter because he's come in, he's done well, and I think everyone is just ecstatic for it. I think no one's really saying, oh, it's bad, it's good. It's just he just did amazing, and I think everyone kind of congratulates him for that.
Yeah, I don't think the consensus is, oh, look, he's showing up all of these guys. It's more, oh my word, Kyle Larson is so good. Because, I mean, the day before practice commenced on Tuesday, I mean, this is another issue that's kind of hampered the rookies, probably hampered Siegel's progress a bit. There was so much rain across practice week. First day, we had 23 minutes. The second day, there were a couple of hours pretty much. And then even the final day, I think, was curtailed a little bit at the end when you consider a couple of crashes as well on Thursday. Fast Friday was pretty complete. But, there wasn't that much running. And Larson still just got up to speed. But, the day before practice started, he rolled a sprint car. And talking of his sprint car racing, I mean, again, it's something that's so different. He's got his NASCAR Cup Series stuff going on, other occasional NASCAR stuff in the lower series as well. The sprint car racing on, dirt racing is so different as well, the technique. But, his adaptability is just incredible. And he's just so unfazed by it all. He gets the extra boost on Friday for Fast Friday. Does it feel different? Not really. No, don't really feel anything. While you've got Pato O'Ward saying, oh my God, it's badass, it's crazy. Kyle Larson's just like, is it? Yeah, it's maybe a little bit faster. But, it's been phenomenal to watch him, really. I mean, just to follow his schedule as well. He gets into the Fast Six, and as McLaughlin's completing his pole run, Larson's up in the air in a chopper to go off to his private jet to get to the NASCAR All-Star race. But
where he finished fourth.
Where he finished fourth.
And
in his race suit.
He said he thought he'd win.
Yeah, all he did was he got in the chopper in his race suit. By the time he got off the chopper, he was in his NASCAR race suit.
That was a mystery. His race suit had
must have got changed on the private jet. But yeah, no, it's incredible. There's such fanfare around him. Jeff Gordon, Tony Kanaan are just embracing it. But Larson's just incredibly calm. All the media commitments, he's been very generous with all of that stuff. But he's now the fastest rookie over a single lap. I don't think he beat Benjamin Peterson's 4-lap average from last year, but he's at least, I think Benjamin Peterson still has the record for the fastest 4-lap average, which is something. I think I'm right in saying that, but I think Larson's first lap on maybe his fast 12 run was the fastest we've ever seen from a rookie. And I mean, O'Ward's car's been a little bit slower, I think, has been the consensus, but Larson still beat O'Ward, which was quite some achievement. So yeah, I mean, phenomenal. And he overcame the should we get onto the plenum events?
Larson's 4-lap average was quicker, I think.
Was it? Okay. So Peterson must have had the record then for the single lap speed, and Larson surpassed that. So
it is Indy 500 week, and we've seen all the Aaron McLarens go out, including Kyle Larson. And I don't know if you've seen, but they've been wearing some pretty fancy caps, as sort of a limited edition Indy 500 caps. And you can actually pick these up at Formula Model Shop. We've recently put them in stock, but they are selling out quickly. Formula Model Shop is the best place to get your IndyCar merchandise in the UK as they try to grow the series in Europe along with ourselves.
You can use the discount code 5BOMB, or one word, FIVEBOMB, to gain 5% off products on the FMS site. Visit the Instagram highlights on the DIVEBOMB Motorsport Instagram for a link to an exclusive VIP section on the FMS store, courtesy of DIVEBOMB.
And you can find the FMS site via a banner on the DIVEBOMB website by visiting formulamotorshop.co.uk.
Stay tuned for exclusive giveaways, events, and other content, including live on DIVEBOMB Motorsport Instagram right now. If you try and predict your winner for the Indy 500 in the comments, and you could be in with a chance of winning a Joseph Newgarden diecast.
And look, this is £85 on the FMS website, so you'll be getting yourself a nice little deal. Very simple. Just follow us and Formula Model Shop on Instagram. Comment below your winner, and you'll be in a chance to claim a pretty nice prize. So that's just going to add it to your week. A little competition being run by Formula Model Shop. So thanks for their support as usual.
The watchword of Saturday, which was a plenum event on his first lap, and he ended up being the first of 6 Chevrolet cars to suffer this basically momentary engine cut on his first run. And it was a bit of a disastrous start for Aaron McLaren, who, Rossi was always there, level-headed. He didn't really run into any trouble, but, Pato O'Ward had... Did he have a plenum event as well?
Giving us flashbacks to the race last year.
Callum Ilott had his first time wiped for some non-compliant part, so it was a bit rocky in a while. It all worked out okay for them. But yeah, it wasn't a smooth start.
Well,
so
it was Larson first, and Larson obviously not racing IndyCar, I had no idea what it was. So he kind of was like, "Oh, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm straight off into pits." Fair enough. If I'm driving IndyCar for the first time, I'm not risking that. Then it was O'Ward, who knew what was going on because he's had it so many times before, and then carried on, which provisionally put him in the bump position, but obviously recovered from that. Then was it? Who was it next? Was it Canapino next? Or
no, I think we had a few. So there were 6.
Rasmussen was the next. Rasmussen had one.
Yeah, I mean. So there were, I think in total there were 6. I'm just trying.
Does that include Power's one on?
That doesn't include Power. So they come out for the pre-Fast 12 practice on Sunday morning. Chevy acknowledged all of these events that happened and said, we're going to be working overnight in our dynos all over the world. And then they tested loads of engine maps on the morning of the Fast 12, and they didn't actually have any after that, apart from Power having one, which evidently they won't have used that engine map, you would guess. Yeah, so there were 6 cars. It was Connor Daly was one of them. So Connor Daly...
Carpenter was the other one that was missing.
So Daly's, he was going to go to around mid-pack, and he was furious. And then
Well,
happened to
Canapino was even angry. I've never seen a guy so angry.
He's one of the calmest people I think I've seen in the paddock, yet he was absolutely furious. So he was the last it happened to. I don't know where Daly fell, but out of the ones that, Carpenter,
Daly
Rasmussen...
the penultimate one. I think it was Larson, O'Ward, Carpenter, Rasmussen, Canapino, Daly.
I think Rasmussen might have been before Carpenter, because I think Rasmussen, Carpenter, Canapino, they were all tracking to possibly get into the fast 12.
Canapino would have easily made it. He was really well.
Rasmussen, again, he sounded devastated on the radio, but he's done a great job, Christian Rasmussen. He's starting 24th, but he could easily have been up near inside the top 15 at least if that run had completed.
They waved his time off, even though he was struggling to improve for some reason.
That was bizarre.
Confused everyone.
That was bizarre. Yeah, he's been a ball of fun as Christian Rasmussen, especially in the race running and practice. He's been working the high line, including on this Monday session. He went around the outside of Herta. On the high line, so he could be fun come the race. Carpenter had his, and then Canapino, who's been just a breath of fresh air. He's been comfortably quicker than Grosjean, and looks right at home in only his second ever Indy 500. So
it's just a huge shame we never saw him in the fast 12.
It wasn't even fast. He could have been on for a top 5 there on Saturday as well. He has a really fast car. He was quicker again on Monday as well. So yeah, that was kind of the watchword. But anyway, Chevy kind of went away. They called a press conference. They said, they feel terrible. It's apparently it was all happening on the downshift, I think. I'm trying to find. It's a set of circumstances, a set of inputs and events lead to rapid combustion of fuel. So that's kind of what the issue is. But yeah, unfortunately, it prevented. If Hunkoffs had got into the fast 12, that's one of the stories of the event. So we were kind of denied something pretty special there. But no harm for the engines. It's just something that occasionally happens, and ultimately, it's because the engines are being run at such a high power with the boost for qualifying that this sort of thing kind of happens, and it kind of speaks to just this engine war and how hard Chevy and Honda. Chevy, who found a lot of speed on Honda, are kind of pushing the limits, really, and I guess you've got to credit them for that in some ways.
But let's talk about Chevy, because they seemed sort of in a league of their own. I think was it 9 cars out of the fast 12 they got in, and the other Honda efforts were all pretty superb efforts.
They locked out the fast 6 in the end. Chevy, all of the top 8 Chevy cars,
none in last chance either. So
it was all very impressive.
Pretty impressive, yeah. They looked really quick, actually, and that first became apparent on Fast Friday. And at the end of Fast Friday, we asked Colton Herta about the disparity between Chevrolet and Honda.
We'll take one off Zoom. Dan Jones, DIVEBOMB Motorsports. Go ahead, Dan.
Thanks, Dave. Hi, Colton. Obviously, Chevrolet looked pretty strong today. So does that sort of concern you from a Honda standpoint? And then the Ganassis weren't as strong as they usually are today, for example.
Yeah, the Ganassis were a weird thing. Not too sure what happened there. They obviously got the pole last 2 years. Last 3 years? Yeah, last 3 years. Dixon has 2, Pillow has 1.
My head.
Oh, well. What? Yeah? 3.
It is 3? Thanks, Zach.
We're just dragging this out. But but it does seem like the Chevys are a little bit stronger, but not too much stronger. I think Kyle had some good laps today. He ran a 2:33.7 without a tow, which I think Joseph's fastest was a 2:34.2. So half a mile an hour, we can work with that. We can fight with that. Chevy definitely seems stronger than they have in the past for qualifying. But I think it's something that we can fight with still.
Let's go over the 3 Hondas that actually did make it and make the Fast 12. First was Carl Kirkwood, who's had decent pace, maybe not Fast 12 pace, but he got first in the draw, so he got the most favourable conditions of anyone. And I think that really helped him because he did 2 runs at the end, but his first run was his quickest. He looked fairly comfortable in that first run. So just an example of how much the draw helps you. If he had, let's say, 16th, 17th, would he have got in? I mean, it's hard to say, but if your aunt and her bull should be your uncle sort of thing. So nothing to take from there. Rosenqvist, I don't think his draw was particularly good. He was about 22nd or 24th or something. So he put in a really mighty run in to get in the fast 12 on the first day in 7th, which is pretty impressive. Kirkwood ended up 5th in the end. And the other one was Takuma Sato, which is a bit odd because, well, we knew Sato would be quick. He's box office at Indy. He's always been quick. And we've talked about Rahal's struggles. Here's Sato lying in 9th, and here's his teammate still barely able to make the field. I mean, Lundgaard was 28th, but you felt like he was pretty comfortable after his first. I think he only did one run in the end, didn't he? And he didn't really look in much threat. Fittipaldi was on the bubble all day, but no one beneath him really seemed to have the pace. So they got in. Sato was in the fast 12. Rahal was about to be bumped. So it's all a bit bizarre. I mean, Rahal suggested that Sato's got a nice engine from Honda. Whether that's true or not, we don't know. But yeah, just odd. Just odd, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, let's touch on the Andretti camp maybe briefly, because Kirkwood, to be fair, I think he was still tracking similar on his sort of second run on Saturday before it was waved off, dropped off a little bit. I think he would have been safe anyway. I think discluding the Meyer Shank cars, which I think actually Rosenqvist kind of looked the fastest of the 7, which is can't hurt, can it, having 7 cars in that camp, especially when you're looking at race running. They can all go out together, a lot of data, a lot of feedback, a lot of setup sharing and stuff. But Kirkwood, ultimately, he'll start 11th. He had a pretty sketchy final run in the Fast 12 session, but still, I'm feeling quite nice about my Kirkwood prediction at the start of the year. I think Rosenqvist is really the one that stood out. Obviously he was quick last year, but kind of just carried that on. We didn't really know. He didn't really know where Meyer Shank were going to be, but I actually think Andretti and Shank, that kind of group, are the strongest Honda cars, and we'll come on to Ganassi and their struggles, but it's really Andretti and Shank that have kind of taken on that mantle as the strongest Hondas. And yeah, their race cars seemingly good as well. Obviously, Ericsson's kind of the anomaly there. Herta was just bumped out of the death by VeeKay's run, so he could easily have been in the Fast 12 as well. I think there's a lot to be happy about. Meyer Shank as well. I think Helio, as I said at the start, he's always good fun. And Tom Blomqvist, to be fair to him, seems to be absolutely loving the experience, and he was safely in the field as well. He's been some very committed, confident, brave runs. You could kind of tell he'd been learning from Castro Neves a little bit. Onto Rahal as well. I mean, what a disparity that was. Sato is, maybe he did have a better engine, some anomalous engine, but he was incredible. I mean, he's clearly bringing a lot to the team. I think he's been helping out in the engineering department over the off season ever since it kind of came to light that he was going to be back with the team. So, oh my word, he was super fast to have a car in 10th. I guess that is vindication for the just tireless work the Rahal drivers keep speaking about having. The team have put in ever since Indy last year, almost more so than focusing on road and street courses where they incidentally have been pretty strong. But yeah, Sato is a ball of fun. But then at the other end, while Pietro Fittipaldi narrowly made it, Lundgaard's first run was good enough. He maybe could have been a bit higher up if he ran again, but obviously wasn't really going to risk pulling his time or anything. But what a worry for Graham Rahal. I mean, I felt for him. I mean, it came to light in the pre-last chance qualifying practice that quite a lot of things were going wrong that were not his fault. There was some wrong readings on these laser scanners that helped with the setup. He almost binned it in the morning practice session for having a loose wheel nut, which could have been catastrophic. That would have possibly been him out of the event without even competing in last chance qualifying. And the amount of times we heard, it's not pulling, the car's not pulling, the car's not pulling the gears. I just felt for him because, he changed engine, still couldn't find the speed. And this is not a reflection on Graham Rahal. No, he was doing all he could. The runs were pretty, I guess, well balanced, but there just wasn't any speed in that car. So yeah, he'll be hoping for a lot more, thankfully, automatically in the field. But I think it was more relief. He still doesn't seem particularly happy with where they are. But yeah, I think we spoke to some of the RLL team on, I think it was before the running on Fast Friday, and I think we asked Bobby Rahal a bit about the expectations, what they could be hoping for. Spoke to Takuma Sato as well about his experiences at Ganassi last year and how that could have helped him, and then also Pietro Fittipaldi about his IndyCar stint so far.
Let's take a question off Zoom. Archie O'Reilly from DIVEBOMB Motorsport Magazine across the Atlantic. Go ahead.
Thanks, Dave. First of all, for Takuma, you drove a Ganassi car last year at IMS, of course. How important is that coming into an RLL team that struggled a bit last year? And at the end of the day, then why did you want to come back to RLL for this year?
Yeah, the first of all, like Bobby said, it was a little bit painful the 2 years ago that we had to go to the different way. But as a professional race car driver, it was fortunate that I had a different path, and obviously they're going racing in 2023 and 23 Chip Ganassi racing. There was both tremendous experience and incredible to see the strategy and the resource that they're using. So now back to the team that my biggest wish is obviously trying to help this team in the lift as high as possible. The same thinking with everyone else in here, and as well as engineers working extremely hard. So how much I could input, obviously the only result could tell. So I'm hoping that 4 of us obviously working extremely together and closely, and 4 of us to be competitive as high as possible. So certainly last 2 years of experience is helping for all the aspects, I believe.
And then for Bobby and maybe for Graham as well, is there anything specific, as far as you guys actually can divulge, that you've maybe changed in terms of philosophy ahead of coming back to the Speedway this year? And then what would make a successful Indy 500 campaign for you, if you've kind of thought that far?
Well, as far as this year, I think we've come here much better prepared. Of course, that's easy to say in hindsight. You think you're prepared last year, but obviously we weren't. And, a lot of the actions that we took following the race not only have continued for the whole year since then, but will continue in the years to come. In other words, this isn't a one-shot commitment or a one-shot deal to improve the competition of the team as a whole. So, we've really strengthened the engineering area, and I think that's already producing results. And will continue to produce results. So, I think that's maybe a difference. I kind of didn't hear the second part of your question, so if you wouldn't mind repeating it.
I guess just what would make a successful Indy 500 campaign, or is that kind of still quite a fluid thing heading into qualifying weekend?
Well, what would make it a successful 500 or week 500 for us is obviously winning the race. That would easily make it give us a good feeling. But it's all about being competitive and being in the thick of it. And that's because this race, a lot of things happen in this race, and you just want to be in a position to be opportunistic. And so that's our intent, is to be opportunistic.
And then for Pietro, I guess, just how do you assess your time back in IndyCar so far? These first few races, how do you assess it so far?
I've loved it, man. Just being here, with the team and being able to actually run a full-time IndyCar program. As I said before, it's been a goal of mine for a very long time. We had a very successful year last year with Jota in the World Endurance Championship, and I had opportunities to race in hypercar this season. But when this opportunity to come back to IndyCar came about, I said, I have to give it a shot, and that's what I want to do. And we're here now, and it's been great. At Thermal, we showed pace. We were there in the final 12. In the final heat races last week as well at the Indy GP. We're running pretty well. So I've been very excited to be part of this team and just continuing to grow. As Christian said, it's very limited, the testing in IndyCar. So it's a lot of the tracks that we're going to, I'm arriving not knowing the tracks and having to learn it in the first practice and so on. So that's always a little bit tougher, but I knew the challenge ahead, and I love challenges. So the goal is just to continue progressing. And I think we've shown good progress, and it's got to continue growing. So, but I'm very happy.
We're going to run through what the starting grid is going to be for the 108th running of the Indianapolis 500, barring any last-minute replacements or any bizarre incidents like last year. So as we said, McLaughlin, Power, Newgarden, Rossi, Larson, and the man we haven't spoken about, Santino Ferrucci, the other guy to get in the fast six, sort of expected with Foyt's pace. I mean, he almost binned it about 4 times in his final run, but he somehow made it round. And yeah, he just continues Foyt's pretty impressive pace around there. I mean, Foyt's so good around here. It's like the expectation now that Foyt are this good. So it's a bit odd to sort of just brush over him like this. But yeah, that's what Foyt are like now at the 500.
That was one of the runs of the weekend. And I feel bad for not talking about Catherine Legg. We will get onto it. But she was another one who was very, very entertaining, putting in some great runs. But I think Ferrucci's might have been the most exhilarating of all in that fast six session. He almost felt like he hit the wall multiple times, but just didn't hit the wall. He
probably did somehow.
He was destined for the wall, but never found it.
Cheating death was Ferrucci in that last run. I don't quite know how he wrangled it around, but he did.
Credit to Michael Cannon and all of his expertise. He's working on the Foyt side and the Penske side.
Yeah, what a cheap way to hire him, eh?
What a quote that was from Colton Herta.
He was ahead of VeeKay, O'Ward, and Rosenqvist, who will line up on row 3, and then it'll be Sato, Kirkwood, and I think a nice little mention to Ryan Hunter-Reay. We haven't mentioned him yet, but he put in a good run on Saturday to get in. It sort of came out of nowhere. It's like, hang on, Hunter-Reay's actually pretty quick here. He might make the fast 12. He did. Then they said they changed something with Chevy, and it ended up being miles off the pace in the fast 12, which is incredibly bizarre. But if you offered Ryan Hunter-Reay a top 12 starting spot, I'm sure he'd be very confident with it, because he got bad draw as well. They had to pull him. So fair play to RHR.
Yeah, it was a late run that got him there. I mean, we tried to kick this episode off by talking about the main stories, but I guess the fact that we're missing stories like this, it kind of just speaks to I guess, how enthralling, dramatic the qualifying weekend always is, because actually this is one of my, I think, favourite stories of the weekend. It feels like vindication for all of those who've rooted for fastest 33, not having the Indy-only entries fighting for 8 spots in the field or whatever, if that was to come in with a charter system, because this is an Indy-only entry that has put a car in the fast 12 in a field of these teams that are turning up week in, week out. This team work all year long to get to this stage, and for Ryan Hunter-Reay to put the car in the fast 12, and Connor Daly could have been mid-pack if it wasn't for his plenum event. That word again. It just feels more special when it's an Indy-only entry doing that. It's a great story. I'm so happy that happened.
And if you were following my live coverage, you would have seen all my various comments about Ryan Hunter-Reay. Because if you remember, at the start of the year, we predicted Ryan Hunter-Reay's lap 2 time. We won't touch on the results now, but I think his second day rather hampered a lot of our predictions, because I think when we made those, none of us expected Ryan Hunter-Reay to make the fast 12. So that kind of scuppered us all a little bit there. And then he made the fast 12 and was really slow. So 230 miles an hour being really slow. What world do we live in?
Perspective is, they keep mentioning that on the broadcast. Perspective is incredible. You're saying these people are slow. Oh wait, they're going 230 miles per hour.
But like, it just in the car, it looks so comfortable. You're like, this is 230 miles an hour. I could do this. So
exactly, yeah.
There you are.
Especially on the cameras, they look so slow. But then if you're actually in person, they zoom by. Yeah.
Row 5 was Herta, Pelot, and Eilert. I think I've touched on Ganassi because they were nowhere. I think we almost all predicted them to be on pole or in there or thereabouts, but they just did not have any pace. Pelot was 14th. He was denied a late run because of VeeKay getting out. Simpson got a really favourable draw. He was 3rd because he wasn't quick on Fast Friday. I think Rahal indirectly noted it, that people who were up against him basically had favourable draws and they got on well in the field. But credit to Simpson anyway, because it was a really good run. And he ended up 18th. Then Dixon, his lowest starting position. Sorry, I missed that Marcus Armstrong. I do apologise. He was 16th. Scott Dixon, worst ever start at the 500. He's going to line up in 21st.
Yeah.
And then you've got Rinus VeeKay who crashed, not to the same extent as Siegel Ericsson did. He kept the same tub. He did well to not make it as big of a crash as it was. He ended up in 26th, I believe.
Yep.
So no,
27th.
27th. So Yeah, not great. Where did Ganassi go? All their paces evaporate. I think you got to not blame Honda, but some of the accountability will have to go on Honda. But yeah, just a shock after how quick they were last year. They've lost 2 miles an hour at least.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we'll endeavour to try and ask that question if we get to speak to any of the drivers. But yeah, I think Honda was a big part of it for sure. I mean, I don't know whether there were quality control issues or what, because you're getting these, Sato's super duper engine, as Rahal said. Rahal changes engine, he's still not got the pace. And Ganassi, you don't imagine they've done anything on the setup side that's kind of made them fluff their lines or what have you. I just, something has gone wrong, and I'm not entirely sure what, because they've been on the pole last 3 years, Dixon twice, Palou last year, obviously setting the record that McLaughlin eclipsed, and the drivers haven't done anything wrong. They've just not had the speed. I mean, the morning practice session before qualifying on Saturday, most teams don't run, but Ganassi are in so much trouble that all their cars went out, and people were even saying, could Scott Dixon be in trouble of having to come back for last chance qualifying, which, it wasn't the case in the end. But, he was another, actually, wasn't he? That he changed an engine and it didn't make any difference. Palou had an engine let go. This is the other thing with Honda. They're having a lot of engines let go as well. Not got the speed of Chevy, and they're having a lot of failures. I think it was something like 7 engine changes since the Indy GP, 2 of which have come for Rahal, Palou, Dixon, Simpson. I think changed an engine as well. So not great, but yeah, Palou was the kind of the best of the bunch, but just such a drop off on notching 235 mile per hour laps last year. And credit to Marcus Armstrong, never even driven on an oval before, apart from testing at Indy, to put it 16th. Fair play to him. And I think Simpson, you mentioned the draw, it probably helped, but at the same time, again, it's kind of more evidence that he's just quite a steady hands, steady young driver. He's got a nice sort of balanced head on him, I think, and
you're pretty pleased you told him at the start of the month he'd out-qualify Dixon.
Yeah, make them feel as a 19-year-old. I mean, fair play. That's a good achievement.
Making me feel old here, Archie.
I'm 19 and I'm feeling old. I'm sitting talking about the 19-year-old making a field, and then obviously Lundqvist. I mean, he was the first crash on Thursday, first crash of the month. You know what? I respect his kind of mentality after that. He said that more than anything, he just wanted to get back out on track, so he wasn't dwelling on it.
So carrying on, 50th was Callum Ilott, 16th was, I can't do math here, 15th was Ilott, 16th was Armstrong, 17th was Carpenter, and 18th was Simpson. 19 was Marco Andretti. Marco Andretti, I feel like we never notice he's there, sort of rocks up and just doesn't really say anything and ends up with a run.
Marco, nothing really to say.
20 was Helio Castroneves, ahead of Scott Dixon, who was in 21st. 22nd was the unfortunate Canapino, ahead of Rob Rasmussen. Blomqvist Grosjean is pretty disappointed about the speed they had. He feels like he could have gone for more. I remember him getting quite angry. Did he have some kind of issue?
Yeah, I think it was again the kind of a bit like what he said at Thermal. I think that this isn't what he came here to be, this fit, this slow, what have you. Another one I'd just like to give a word on from that bunch is Stingray Rob. 23rd isn't phenomenal given where Foyt kind of are, even where Peterson was last year. But you know what? He avoided last chance qualifying. It looked at some stages during the week when, to be fair, Foyt they had a difficult sort of practice week. Their race car's not in great stead, so they've got work to do there. But they found their way in qualifying. I think Rob, his first run he had a bit of a wiggle at one point, but he improved on a second run later on, I think. But at least he's safely in the field. I think it's an improvement on last year.
Grosjean lined up 26th. He was next to Lundqvist on the outside. Then it's Lundgaard, Daly, and Fittipaldi were the last 3 to make the grid on Saturday. And then Legg, Ericsson, and Rahal made the final row. Legg's run was pretty sketchy as well. She was one who was she said she was too scared to go out again, so she's kind of relieved that she got that out of the way.
Yeah, every leg run seems to be good. I mean, on Saturday she hit the turn 4 wall, but did not lift. I mean, that's one thing you've got to give her credit for. The car did look a bit loose at times, but she just kept her foot pinned the whole time. As much as she came out and I really respect her honesty, saying, you know what, sometimes I wish I'd just gone to college, got a proper job. It was absolutely terrifying. And I think any driver that says it isn't a bit terrifying or nerve-wracking is probably lying, because you're going at some of them peaking at 240 miles per hour. So really, really good job from Catherine Legg, because again, a bit like Siegel, the whole coin team were just struggling. They just couldn't find the pace really. But you know what? She was the most comfortable, even if she didn't feel particularly comfortable. She was the most comfortable in last chance qualifying and didn't really have any issues making the field. Yeah, she had to come back for last chance qualifying this year, didn't last year, but great effort. I'm really, really happy for her, because she's turns up for this one race. This is his only second Indy 500 in 10 years after last year or whatever it is, and turns up. Does a really good job.
And she's from the same town as me.
So that's a plus.
Exactly. These are the things you don't get on the broadcast. There you are. One man I'd like to give a bit of a shout out to is Tony Kanaan. What a guy. What a guy. Nolan Siegel came up to him on Saturday evening and just reached out to him and said, look, I need a bit of help, and he did. He was struggling. And here's good guy Tony Kanaan, who not only gives him a bit of advice as an Indy 500 champion, next day he's on the Nolan Siegel stand. He's not helping with setup or anything. He's sort of there just to give Siegel some support, to tell the team what he sees they need to do. And yes, it wasn't quite enough, but the improvements were there. And Kanaan was a nice guy. He sort of sympathized quite a lot with Siegel's struggles, and Siegel's also part of Zach Brown's United Autosports program. Zach Brown and Gavin Ward approved Kanaan to go onto the Siegel stand. So a nice show of sportsmanship by Tony Kanaan. What a nice guy.
Yeah, I think credit to TK, credit to McLaren, credit to everyone there. Credit to Nolan for saying, you know what, I need a bit of help here. Let's just reach out. And yeah, I think it just speak to what a nice guy Kanaan is. Obviously, there were the reports when Malukas was injured that he was ferrying him around to simulators to his house and taking him to all of his appointments. And yeah, fair play to Tony Kanaan. That's a really nice deed. He's got a big role at McLaren, and yeah, he wasn't doing setups or anything, but to come over, raise spirits, give him some advice, work alongside Charlie Kimball, who, as I said before, also did a really good job. So nice and positive in Nolan's ear the whole time, even after his crash at the end. So yeah, I think there was a great feel around the whole Siegel camp, really. So
and
credit to Charlie Kimball. Yep.
Thursday, running just in case Larson runs into trouble with rain or whatever. Yeah. So yeah, we'll see.
I don't know if this is confirmed, but they're definitely efforting to make this happen on Thursday, just in case.
So you mentioned David Malukas, and he was also there at track, and I just remember it because he went around reviewing some of the car liveries, and he was just going around. And then there was also one, I think it was, whose was it? It was a 14 car, or was it Ferrucci's? And it was just, he just put it was just the sounds of the Eagles or the Hawks or whatever. He didn't even say anything. So I just thought I'd mention that because he was there.
Probably a good time to go into our funny moment of the week, is it not?
Oh, we're having a funny moment of the week this week?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, go on.
I had one in my head, but I can't quite remember what it was. Oh, I know.
Go on, spit it out then.
It is Jenna Fryer, the renowned Jenna Fryer from the Associated Press, asked Kyle Larson about whether he was looking forward to milking the cow this week. Kyle Larson did not know this was something that rookies had to do, or the fastest rookie had to do. So yeah, I think it might even be the day this comes out. Kyle Larson is going to have to do obviously with all the connections to Indiana Dairy Association, all of that stuff. He has to go and milk a cow because he was fastest rookie, which Larson was baffled by and said, please make sure I can wear a glove or something along those lines. So that's a funny note from the week.
I can't actually think of anything that
I was thinking your Malukas thing was quite a good shout.
I think that's
it was good.
Yeah.
I sent it to Archie if anyone in the context, just with a few laughing faces. I think Carl, I sent a tweet this morning. Carl Kirkwood took a picture of, I think it was Carpenter, Who else was in there?
Leg was there. Maybe
Leg was there.
Rahal.
I feel like it was an Indy 500. Hunter Ray.
Carpenter.
Hunter Ray.
Did you say Carpenter?
Carpenter, Hunter Ray, and Leg. So he took a selfie. Said a few legends of racing and Colton, as Colton Herta standing in the background. Should we get onto my little saga of the week?
Go for it. Oh yes, go for it.
Saga.
No, don't go for it. Oh, I don't want to hear.
Do you want to bring up my saga, or
you can bring it up? I've heard enough of this.
So, that brings us on to the power video I found. So,
okay,
maybe that's a funny moment. That's a funny moment.
It was 5 years ago, but that's a funny moment.
It's still funny. My basketball team, the New York Knicks, have been playing the Indiana Pacers in the NBA playoffs this week. And obviously being Indiana and Indianapolis, all the drivers support the Pacers, apart from Scott McLaughlin. So me and McLaughlin have been residing on the New York Knicks this week to try and win. And they've been speaking about it quite a lot on the broadcast, actually. Kevin Lee mentioned it in practice. I think Connor Daly mentioned it yesterday before they played their final game. So I've been angry this week finding out all these drivers are massive Indiana Pacers fans, and there's loads. Daly, O'Ward, Herta is a big Pacers fan. Ericsson, like everyone. I haven't done my research yet. But I will give you a definitive list one day of who's Indiana Pacers fans, who's part of those dodgy human beings supporting the Indiana Pacers. And yeah, the Knicks ended up losing. So my week was compounded by a 4-3 loss. And so all the New York Knicks got injured, and I think McLaughlin lost a bet because he was saying he was supporting the Pacers from now on or something, and without touching on the Knicks. But anyway, as part of my extensive research this week, I've been doing some interesting looking. If you didn't know, the Pacers player Tyrese Halliburton drove the Indy 500 pace car last year. It was announced today as some baseball player.
And when
Ken Griffey Jr.
When they had that NBA sort of All-Star event where Connor Daly took part of the in the charity game, he drove Tyrese Halliburton to the actual All-Star game in the two-seater because I think it was in Indy.
Yes.
So that's another link.
Yeah. Anyway, I've been scoundering around Twitter this week at various different nonsense trying to find out who's part of those cults who support the Pacers. We came across this absolutely fantastic video of Will Power just in the stands, like playing these drums of these Pacers Ultras, and honestly, it's one of the best videos I've seen in a long time.
Because he plays the drums, doesn't he, Will Power? I'm pretty sure he plays the drums. Colton does something else in a band, doesn't he?
The Zibs.
Because Power Thermal, when they had the party beforehand, he was playing the drums, wasn't he? Because he didn't know the song. I remember the story. I can't remember what the song was. But he's like a bit of a genius on the drums. So he was playing the drums and like picked it up immediately, whatever the song was. Will Power's a drummer. Colton Herta's in a band, if you didn't know.
I think Archie retweeted it. So look on Archie's Instagram.
You might have to look back quite far. But...
You might have to look back quite far because this video of Will Power playing the drums and in the Pacers stands is quite funny. But I will give some definitive research next week once I've recovered from the Knicks losing. So annoying, frustrating week. However, should we say it's actually my day's got a lot better today. So it's been coming, but we finally got Pato O'Ward at a press conference as we spoke to him about Kyle Larson and going back from qualifying trim to race trim. So here it is right now.
Let's take one more off of Zoom. We'll wrap it up. Dan Jones, DIVEBOMB Motorsports. Go ahead, Dan.
Thanks, Dave. Hi, Pato. How easy is it to sort of go into race trim after spending the last couple of days in qualifying trim? Is it an adaptation you have to make yourself, or?
Definitely a lot slower. Qualifying is a different dimension, I would say, in terms of just how much lighter the car is by yourself. But in race mode, you can scare yourself for sure. It was today, the track in 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 for me was a bit of a bit different than what I had feeling the past couple days in race running. So it was just in race day maybe it comes and it's the absolute opposite, or maybe both ends of the track feel the same. I mean, that's why you've got the tools inside of the car, right? But ultimately, it's just all about staying on top of it, and then just having enough things that you can kind of pepper in throughout the race in order to have it comfortable enough. The worst thing that can happen is, just not by the front wing or rear wing or the bars that you've got and the weight jacker. If you can't really alter the balance to a somewhat comfortable liking, then it really is a miserable 3 hours.
And last few weeks, how has it been working with Carl Larson? Have you sort of learned anything from him? Have you been talking to him much in the entire process?
Honestly, he's had a very intense schedule, so I haven't really seen him much. We've talked to each other a couple times, but yeah, I in a lot of the debriefs, he's not there because like yesterday he had a race. He's got a packed schedule, so we actually don't get to see him a lot.
Awesome, thanks, Pato. Best of luck for the week ahead.
Cheers, thank you.
Okay, Dan, wrap it up in person. Steve, go ahead.
Right, with it being qualifying this week, we have of course, had the Firestone Fast 6 Predictor Tournament. Going into this round, the maths is fairly easy. It's 13 apiece. So who's going to break an early lead? I went for VeeKay, Pato, O'Ward, Larson, Dixon, and Carpenter. That's turned out to be a bit of a disaster. The only one I got was Kyle Larson, out of all people. I sort of did it for the fun of it and ended up being the only one right, which is a bit embarrassing, but hey, it's not zero. Archie went for Dixon, Pato, VeeKay, O'Ward, Ferrucci, and Power. So you've got 2 in Ferrucci and Power. And Ellie, you went for VeeKay, Newgarden, Ferrucci, Dixon, McLaughlin, and O'Ward. So you've ended up with 3 there. So that's not bad going. So you take lead of the standings with 16, Archie's on 15, and I'm on 14. So still very close. And of course, we'll have the podium predictor tournament for next week as well. Will it be a bit different with people knowing the grid? We don't know. But ahead of that, should we pick out some people we're maybe to keep an eye out for? Well, I said Alex Pato would win. I think I don't know about that one. But Newgarden was in a similar position last year and he won. So
I think, exactly. Penske were not quick in qualifying last year. Their race car was unbelievable. And I think Ganassi haven't looked that out of place at all in practice. I think Pato maybe topped one day. Dixon topped the 23 minutes on the opening day. So, it all is not lost for them. I think Andretti looks super good. I think Meyer Shank Racing have got a lot of repetitions. They seem to have had the most laps of anyone pretty much every single day on all of their cars. So that's something to look out for. Maybe Rosenqvist. I think ultimately Herta and Kirkwood are the 2. Herta looks unbelievable on Monday practice. He's very happy with his race car. Basically has to make no changes despite, you had Pato, I think, was back in the garage at the end of the session despite, basically because they had such a lack of running last week. They couldn't figure everything out they needed to because of all the rain that we had. But Herta, despite that, was siding through the pack. I think he came from about 15 deep to take the lead in less than 20 laps, which was pretty solid effort. Obviously, the Penskes are very fast. Rossi's probably a good shout as well. Ferrucci, we know he's always there or thereabouts. Can VeeKay hook everything up? There's 10, 15 cars that could win this race easily. So it's just so hard to know. But I think Penske, you've still got to put Penske on the front foot. If they can really work together at the front, sort of, manage the first sort of 3/4, 4/5 of the race before it really sort of heats up at the end.
It's about when do you go for it yourself rather than when you go for it with the team. You still confident in Kirkwood?
I like that prediction actually. He's starting inside the top 12. I think he's starting 11th and see. So yeah, I don't mind it. I think the Andretti cars do look really, really good. So
2 of them.
2 of them look good, and
one looks all right.
Rosenqvist as well, because I think they are really, really classing this as this is 7 cars. Like, when they were doing their qualifying runs, it was like, I think one of the Andretti's was going out and they were like, oh, well, Rosenqvist has just said this on his run. So they are really all working together. So Rosenqvist, I think Rosenqvist probably a little bit behind. I'd say of that bunch, Herta, Kirkwood, Rosenqvist, but I'd still probably give the Penskes the edge, I think.
McLaren deserve a shout. O'Ward's been strong. Rossi looks really good this year. O'Ward doesn't seem as confident in his race running as he does in previous years, but I think Rossi might be pretty good. And I think can't rule out Larson. Wonder what happens if Larson wins. Does he still go to?
Just go in his helicopter immediately. No media or anything.
Does he have the media in the
Or
helicopter?
do they? I mean, they put the race at North Wilkesboro, the All-Star race back a bit. So
yeah, I'm not sure.
Maybe if he wins, there might be. There's so much fanfare, they might put the time back a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know if he'll go.
He has to be out by 4:15. He has to be out by 4:15, which is about when the race finished last year.
Well, yeah, but that had 3 red flags.
Yeah, exactly.
So
that was a bit abnormal.
Normally, what you're looking at 3 Eastern. So
yeah, McLaren are interesting because O'Ward came in after this Monday practice session and was pretty unhappy with his car. He feels like if it stays as it is at the moment, he'll just be nowhere in the race. So, one to watch.
Certainly. And that leads us on to next week's episode, where we will have a review of the 108th running of the Indianapolis 500. There's so many questions, so many unanswered things in our heads, but they will all be answered next week as someone will have their name engraved on the Paul Warner trophy. They'll down themselves in the milk and they'll be remembered in motorsport folklore forever. 1 week to go into the Indianapolis 500. Enjoy your wait. We certainly are looking forward to it. We'll see you then.